Construction on Line A of the Cragin project began in Payson in mid-July of 2015. Line A begins just east of the roundabout on Tyler Parkway and turns south at the Beeline Highway. It goes south some 8,000 feet to connect to an existing water system pipeline at 504 North Beeline across from Ace Hardware. The connection to the existing line on the west side of the highway required inserting the pipeline underneath the highway. The process of installing any public utility under a state highway poses particular construction challenges. ADOT would not allow interrupting traffic flow on such a busy highway as the State Route 260. The only practical means of installing any underground utility from one side of a state highway to the other side is by boring horizontally under the highway and pushing the pipeline through the borehole. Using this method on State Route 260 and the Beeline afforded particular advantages to the project.
Your boring machine, basically it's a horizontal auger for drilling a hole sideways through the earth. So you dig a pit, excavate it down to the depth that you want to be, and then you place your boring machine in there. It happens to run on rails like a train does, and it has hydraulic pushers that will sit and they grab a hold of a spot in the rail, and under pressure they push the boring head forward while it's turning, and then of course the spoil material comes back out past their augers and into the pit, and they scoop it up in a small machine and haul it out of the pit. They had on a very aggressive rock head that is specifically designed to go through rock. They placed the casing pipe, 30 inches in diameter, and then inside that, 12-inch ductile iron pipe went together piece by piece. 20-foot joints. They were joined together on the outside of the casing pipe, and then it was pushed on stainless steel skids with neoprene shoes. That keeps it aligned inside the pipe and doesn't allow it to collapse and sag, but keeps it basically in one straight alignment.
A few days after the project began with the bore underneath the Beeline Highway, the first connection to Line A was installed right in front of Ace Hardware. Day by day, the Line A work continued with the construction crew encountering barriers from time to time. Some were man-made and some natural. We originally expected to see about 200 feet of rock in the 8,000-foot Line A alignment. As it turned out, there was well over 1,200 feet. Before the ductile pipe was put in place, it was encased in a polyethylene sleeve to protect against corrosion. The ends of the pipe were coated with an elastomeric substance to perfect the seal between the spigot end and the socket end. Then 2 electrical connection wires were welded in place to connect each 20-foot length of pipe. This connection allows a small electric current to be run through the extent of the pipeline to prevent corrosion. A blue tracing wire was also laid on top of the pipe during the backfill. A radio signal can be run through this blue wire to allow the water department to locate the pipe from above ground with an electronic device. This enables us to mark the location for those who may need to dig near the water line in the future. Then a blue mylar tape is placed several feet above the pipeline as a warning to those that dig that they are close to a water line. By October, construction had progressed in the area between Forest Drive and Sherwood Drive. In late October, work began on the Penstock Phase 1 up in the National Forest.
The Phase 1 of the Penstock Construction starts up above the rim trail area at the SRP generating station. At that point it goes south through some native area and then through rim trail subdivision, follows along Forest Service Road 32, and then connects into Control Road, heads east on Control Road for approximately a quarter mile, and then we head up over what they call Bear Canyon to cut through the Whispering Pines area, and then back down to Houston Mesa Road, follows the road basically down to Third Crossing, and then crosses the old alignment of Third Crossing, and then just south of Third Crossing is the end of Phase 1.
The decision was made to begin trenching first on Forest Road 32 near the Control Road 64. By November 2nd, the trenching had gone about a mile north on Forest Service 32 towards Washington Park. There was some snow on the ground up there by November 5th, but this did not cause any significant delay in the work as they had begun putting pipe in the ground. Meanwhile, in Payson, the construction crew was working on the area between Rancho Road and Airline Boulevard. One of the first tasks was to cut across the parking lot of Pioneer Village. Between Rancho and Airline, there were connections to 3 different pressure zone pipelines that required installation of regulators, one that fed the East Rancho neighborhood, one for Alpine Heights, and another that crossed under the Beeline Highway to connect to water tanks at the top of Airport Road. That line was buried in the American Gulch and went under the major drainage structure that crossed under the Beeline Highway. Gabion mattresses were constructed and inserted in the bend of the American Gulch to prevent erosion. Work was progressing at a good pace as we approached the roundabout at Beeline and Tyler. The Line A North Beeline pipeline was always considered to be the most difficult of all Cragin project elements. The normal construction method of digging a ditch for large pipeline installation is that you move tons of earth every minute with a large excavator in a limited space. But on this particular job, that method of construction was reduced to removing dirt by the shovelful and sometime by the handful to avoid existing obstructions underground.
Doing a project like this requires a lot of creativity on behalf of the contractor.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got to get creative, like by the roundabout by Home Depot. We're going around that curve right there at the roundabout, so we're limited for space, getting traffic to be able to get around there because we're so tight. We've got to tear the sidewalk out, get underneath the sidewalk. Plus we're working on a curve there. Well, the pipe doesn't bend very well, so we have a lot of fittings and things that we have to put in.
We had a bank of 6 conduits that were telephone, cable TV, fiber optics. 10 feet away from that or less, we had 8 primary electrical feed conduits. We crossed a water line 3 different times and a gas line that was parallel with our trench.
So we have to be underneath all of those lines. So we're getting a little bit deeper. We're probably about 8 foot deep going around there. So that's a challenge right there because you have to shore the ditch and everything to make it safe to work in. Plus dealing with trying to locate all of this stuff without breaking it, which the town's been very helpful with that. They have a vacuum truck that they help us locate it.
A soft dig is done with their vacuum truck, and their vacuum truck is basically about a 4-ton vacuum. The pressure washer loosens up the dirt, and the 6-inch vacuum hose then sucks up all of that dirt, water, slurry mix until we can get down and we can see a pipe.
With work going well up on the Penstock and the construction on FS 32 being completed, attention was turned to Bear Canyon, where the pipeline took an important shortcut. The 3/4 mile pipeline through the forest, and that detour is known as Bear Canyon, was necessary to avoid trying to construct the pipeline on a very narrow section of East Houston Mesa Road going through the Whispering Pines subdivision.
There's such a narrow corridor going through there with private property on both sides. There's some barricades there holding up a slope, and we felt that by going through that area, number one, we'd close that road down continuously for days on end going through there to get the construction through, if we could even get through that narrow corridor. So we started looking at an alternate path and found that Bear Canyon was a good solution. We talked to the Forest Service and got their approvals and went through the whole process of the environmental clearances to get through that area. We were pretty sure that that Bear Canyon area was going to have a lot of rock. Just from hiking up through there, doing the initial layouts, we saw a lot of exposed rock ledges. So we felt that through that area there would be a lot of rock excavation.
The geology we encountered when digging the trench for the pipeline surprised us all, I think. The Phase 1 pipeline is 5.5 miles long and required only 1,000 feet of blasting. The Tapete sandstone rock encountered there was extremely hard and couldn't be excavated like the rest of the trench by either rock trencher or large excavators. It was always anticipated that some blasting would be necessary, so it did not have a big impact on the schedule. At the tail race near the SRP power station by Washington Park, the pipeline was nearing completion. On March 7, 2016, the final connection to the line that had been completed in the winter of 2012 was made. In just a few days, the trench was backfilled and a helicopter pad was installed close to the power station. In Payson, 1 week later on March 14, 2016, Line A was completed with a final connection that would complete construction of what is the main artery of the new water supply in Payson. Line A is truly the main artery of the new water supply. Now, Line H, which is already in and originating at the site of the new treatment plant, is connected to Line G. Line G crosses overland from Houston Mesa Road to Tyler Parkway and is now connected to Line A. Line A, which runs 8,000 feet down Beeline Highway into town, connects to Line D at Airport Road. Line D goes up Airport Road to connect to the tanks at the top of the hill. Line A continues to Zurich Drive and connects to Line B, which runs all the way over to Mud Springs and connects to Line C there. Line C crosses under State Route 260, now to a connection that will improve service in the southeast part of town. Line A also goes under Beeline and connects to Line E, which will feed the southwest part of town. In all, Line A will bring the new Cragin water to 8 recharge wells and 5 water storage tanks. There was still work to be done up at the Penstock Phase 1, and this work would be taking place in a very environmentally sensitive area. Payson's special use permit from the Forest Service had very strict requirements on how we cross the East Verde River.
The permitting process only allowed for a 14-day period to make the crossing on the East Verde River. Within that, the contractor was responsible for first diverting the channel to one side, diverting the river to one side so that he can construct on the other side. After he made his diversion, he had to excavate through a lot of rock, a large trench, large enough for a sleeve that the water line was actually going to go into afterwards, and that sleeve is actually encased with concrete. And then he had to, once he got one side done, he had to re-divert it and then do the same thing again on the other side. And then after that was done, then he had to restore the area back to its native habitat, basically, with rocks and debris, just like it would have had with a natural river crossing. All that had to be done within a 14-day period, and the contractor was actually successful in completing that in a 10-day period.
Now the road between the Bear Canyon Bypass and Third Crossing needed to be finished, and that was done in May and June. And a section of road after Third Crossing to the end of Phase 1 pipeline was completed. And now at the end of August, work has begun on Phase 2 of the Penstock, beginning at the site at the new treatment plant in Mesa del Caballo. Trenching is continuing north on Houston Mesa Road. As of October 20th, about 1.5 miles of pipeline has been installed.
As a resident of Payson, this project just made my property much more valuable in that we basically have as close as you can get to a guaranteed supply of water.
And we'll have a very sustainable water source for years and years to come.
So during my entire career of over 40 years with the Payson Public Water System, the pursuit of additional water has always been the top priority in every budget that the Water Department has had. We're about to achieve that after all these years. So with the relief of having that done, not having to focus in the future on developing additional water supplies, and knowing that we have what is very rare in Arizona, a essentially forever water supply, is sort of hard to get your head around, but it's going to be a reality. I hope that people remember some of the effort it took to do this and all of the people and all the agencies involved, because it just has a forever impact on the town of Payson.